But yeah, welcome to soggy Los Angeles.
I know. What part of LA are you in?
I'm up in, I'm right by the Hollywood sign.
Oh, cool.
So it's kind of like I'm on the border of Los Feliz, and I'm at the top of a canyon, which is the worst place to be because the reception here is absolutely atrocious.
Right.
So,
Well, I'm your neighbor. I can see the Hollywood sign from my balcony right here. We're Little
so you're
Armenian.
Beachwood?
We're below Beechwood, like you know where Vermont and Hollywood are?
Yeah,
Or-
yeah.
Yeah, we're just east of there.
So you probably get the same sort of notifications on Citizen as I do, right?
For
Of
sure.
like people shooting each other.
Yeah, yeah, it's so crazy. It's oddly calm here, but there's some wacky stuff that happens in a
It's
quarantine, evidently.
it's so beautiful to drive and drive down like Argyle and then Hollywood Boulevard's empty. You know, like what the fuck?
Yeah, no
Never
traffic.
seen that. You
Oh,
know.
it's crazy. How long have you been in LA now?
I moved here initially about 8 years ago. You know, when I left Bumble and opened up a little spot, a little sort of crazy studio called White House in West Hollywood.
Mhm.
And then I moved to Miami right after we sort of like established the brand for 2 years there. And then I moved back. So I just felt like LA was a better place, you know, to do what I do, you know, creatively, like finding kids who want to cut their hair. You know, Miami is a very sort of like tough place to find people who want to do anything that's different, you know.
Sure.
You know, and it's very Latin, you know, which is fantastic. But so we moved back here about 2 years ago, about 3 years ago. So it's fantastic. I love LA, you know.
Yeah, yeah. I just had my 10-year anniversary here. It's been really nice.
And where were you originally from?
Originally from Dallas, actually.
Oh, of course, yeah. Cool. Which I
Yeah.
love, you know. I remember back in the day when I was with Toni Guy, we opened up Sherry Lane, which was the
I
first.
used to work there.
I got fired a few times from there, but yeah, it was. We opened up Sherry Lane. We had Jones, which was a fashion clothing store right next door, which was great. And yeah, I remember the first night as we opened it, I insulted people and Bruno fired me and Anthony hired me, you know, the next day. But I got fired from Toni Guy like 5 times.
Nice.
It was so good. But it was never for anything other than, you know, just being a complete asshole, you know.
Yeah. Well, there was room for that. At that
Back
company.
then there was, you know, now you can, you know. But
So were you living there for a while?
no, James Morrison lived there with Bruno. You know, it was the start of this whole separation of Toni Guy. You know,
Right.
when TG and all that started, and James, I remember like going to his place all the time. I actually taught him how to drive one time in Dallas, which was like a drunken, stoned mess. But
I would like to hear that story at some point.
he had this old vintage car, like, you know, it was like a bomb, you know, like I can't remember the name of it, but it's the one where if you hit it from the back because the petrol tank was in the back, it would just explode.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I taught him how to drive this thing. Then he ended up crashing Bruno's wife's car, which
Oh
was
my God.
not good, but yeah, it was fun
Kyra-
days, you know.
Kyra. Yeah.
I stayed in London until I left Toni Guy and moved to Paris.
Wow. Okay. Okay, cool. So there's a lot of things I want to cover there. Before we get there, I know most people, I'm sure you've told this story thousands and thousands of times, and I know most people know it. You can practically Google it, but just a little bit of how all of this started for you.
What, getting into hairdressing?
Yeah.
You know, I never, you know, ever thought of being a hairdresser. You know, it was not in my radar at all. You know, my mum used to make me comb her hair with olive oil in it, and it stank. But she'd give me biscuits or cookies, But I had no interest. My sister worked in a salon in Glasgow, but again, I had no. It was never sort of like my dream sort of like occupation. You know, I always thought I was going to be either an engineer or like a motor mechanic. You know, I was very into cars. We used to build cars as kids and then crash them on the weekends, playing hide and seek with cars and these public parks. And my sister got a haircut, and I adore my sister. She's my older sister, so you know we'd fight. She hit me with a hammer one time actually, but so I think I stole some money from her.
Yeah.
But she got a haircut, and her hair was like probably, you know, 12 to 15 inches long, and she comes back with this beautiful sort of like Vidal Sassoon sort of firefly haircut, and I kind of just looked at her like, that's really cool. You know, like, how did somebody decide to do that? And she was like, oh, I just went and told them, you know, do what they want. And they gave me this. And I went to a party that night with her and just fell in love with these crazy fucking people, you know, dressed up, you know, afros, high heels. I mean, just, it was a world that I had never, ever sort of discovered. You know, I grew up in Glasgow as, you know, sort of in gang culture where, you know, I was a skinhead and, you know, it was about style. It wasn't about racism or anything.
Right.
And these people just really just blew me away, you know. People, this one guy had an orange leather jumpsuit on. Like, what's that? You know, and it was a world that just I was so fascinated by. And by the end of the night, this guy, Tommy Gallagher, offered me a job. And he was already like 5'11", but he had on like platforms, and he had an afro that was about 12 inches wide and makeup on. And he was straight. He was like, do you want a job for the summer? I was like, yeah, okay. And that was it. I never looked back. You know, it was just, I was fascinated by the culture more than anything else. I hated my education. I hated doing my classes. Never felt that I was any good. Right. You know.
You mean prior to hair?
Or no, when I got into working with them, you know, I mean, I did my classes and I struggled with, you know, geometry at school, so I was useless at, like, you know, sectioning and all the stuff. But I had a big mouth, you know what I mean? So I would always like be questioning, well, why is he doing the same as I'm doing? How can I be an individual?
Right.
And, you know, I spent a few years doing that, and, you know, I became a stylist. And I remember my art director sort of pulled me one day into the staff room. He's like, you're never going to fucking make it. And I was like, well, you know, I'm never going to make it what you think it is, but let me make it what I want it to be. You know, and I struggled. You know, I wasn't a natural hairdresser.
Right.
You know, everything was so, it's like, and I just didn't understand it. You know, so it took me a few years to sort of like try and find if I wanted to actually be a hairdresser.
So what
and then
what was the confidence? Like, where did you derive that confidence to kind of keep pushing through that?
I knew that I had something, you know, I knew that I had something, and I had an opinion.
Yeah.
I just didn't know how to dig it out, you know, to find it in myself. But, you know, I kept going and, you know, started to realize that I could actually be very different from what they taught me, you know, and not be this technical sort of like robotic hairdresser.
Sure.
You know, and I regret that, you know, because I realized many, many years later that is the foundation of who I am.
Right.
But right then, as a kid, you're like, I don't know, you know, and it does take a while to sort of find out first of all, how do you learn, and who do you want to be?
Sure.
You know?
Yeah.
And I think that's the best part of this industry, is that we're allowed to have that sort of complicated, you know, misunderstanding of like, who do I want to be, you know, and how to get there. And, you know, I moved to London a few years after being a stylist, and I got to work with Toni Guy, and I got to work with Anthony Muscola very closely. And that was the sort of second chapter of my life, my hairdressing life, you know, where I saw how deconstructed and disruptive they were to the technique.
Right.
And that sort of blew my shit, because it was like, oh, fuck, you can take one section and do instead of like 10.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so I was so in love with what Anthony was doing and his whole organization. And they saw something in me that propelled us to, you know, we started doing photography together. And, you know, I remember one time, my whole idea was, if I make him take the photos, then I need to do the hair.
Right.
So it's like, okay, you can trip him up a bit.
Yeah.
But we borrowed Robert Labetta, who's an incredible hairdresser. I think his last was with Sebastian. But Robert comes round one day and he asked for his lights back. And it was like someone asking, like, it's my ball. You know? We were like, fuck off, like, we're using them. You know what I mean? You're not going to do anything with them. But just, there was such an excitement about growth, you know, at that period of my life, that still affects me.
Where was Toni and Guy at that point as a company? They hadn't obviously split off into the United States yet, correct?
Not yet. No, I mean, right before I left, we opened Dallas, which was good and bad, but it allowed me to sort of like curate and create a culture that affected millions of people as hairdressers. And, you know, it was fantastic, you know, making products. And, you know, we were bankrupt probably for at least 7 years every year, because we would spend the money on, you know, getting the best laser copier so we could make our own magazines. And,
nice.
You know, it was kind of ridiculous in a way, but in a way, what we saw was the ability to create this gigantic organization that was sleeping, you know, like a sleeping giant. And it was, you know, it's so experimental, you know, and I've learned, and I still learn so much from teaching, you know, and making, you know, having people do, well, try this, and you're like, oh shit, that doesn't work, so don't do that again. But it was a bunch of mental people, including my brother Raymond, that just had too much fun doing hair, you know.
When I first experienced Bumble, I really didn't know anything about it, because I was all Toni and Guy. I thought Toni and Guy was it. That was all I knew. And then I remember seeing one of the hair story videos and watching you pull somebody off the street and start raising her hair. And you started from the side of her head instead of the back, which was not something I'd ever thought of. And I often wondered, did you do that just for the sake of doing it? Just for the sake, like, just because you could? Or
no, I mean, to me, if you've got something that's interesting in the front, head it right away. If you're going to give somebody bangs, do that immediately, because all the tension relaxes, you know, because you can spend like 20 minutes with somebody's head down, you know, cutting the back. And by the time they put their head up, there's nothing to see.
Yeah.
There's no result yet. So why not like hit the front right away? And then, oh, cool, this is great. I see where you're going. And you can spend whatever in the back. But, you know, it was just reversing all, you know, my biggest thing is curiosity, you know, and like, why am I still doing the same as what I did 25 years ago.
Sure.
It doesn't make any sense, you know. So that was breaking boundaries for me of like, well, you know, and it really came from working in photography and freelance of like, you do that, don't, you know, hit it right away and then work on whatever's left.
Sure.
But that's the reveal, you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right away, it's like, oh, cool, this is good,
Sure.
you know. So all the tension laws, but it was always my way of like, how else can I, not that I wanted to do things differently, but I wanted to challenge myself on the type of hairdresser I wanted to be, the type of hairdressers I wanted to mentor and teach, and create this new sort of like reign of like young hairdressers, you know, and break the rules.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, break the rules in the best way, you know.
Absolutely.
Still respect how we learned, but how we do it now is very, very different.
By the time I realized what Bumble was and why, it was too late. It was, you know, the ship had sailed for me to get on that, and it really was depressingly what I was really looking for in a way, as far as the evolution from Toni and Guy. But having lost Hairdressers and starting to work in New York, I ended up working for a lot of guys who had Bumble, you know, experience, Laurent Philippon and James Petches and Karina from Pony.
Yeah.
And I started feeling like I could at least get a taste because they all experienced it at that right time. And I really loved what you guys did. It was beautiful.
Well, I think that's the thing is like, you know, the kids that we did work with, like Karina or Kobe, James Petches, we installed something of their right to be who they wanted to be.
Totally.
You know, and we gave them a map and they had to find their own way, you know, and we kind of tortured them sometimes, which was funny. But it was the right to be the hairdresser you want to be, you know, and not stuffed into a box of like, this is the only way to do this, because we didn't believe it. And, you know, and it was really, the influx of kids to Bumble was incredible because, you know, I used to do a Wednesday class and they would have to bring a model and we would try stuff out. And it was so amazing because it was just like, it was like a punk rock, you know, day out, you know, loud music, things were sort of chaotic, but there was a confidence that we gave to the kids and gave to the students and even the hairdressers in the salon that get it, you know.
Oh, yeah, totally. Absolutely.
And let me help you find how to get it. But tell me what you want and I'll tell you how to get there.
Yep.
You know, and that was the magic of it. You know, and now, you know, our industry is full of kids who have come out of Bumble, you know, and had that experience, and, you know, many freelancers, you know. These kids got to see people like Ward Stegerhook, you know, Laurent Philippon, Jimmy Paul, you know, Rolando Beauchamp, and just the most incredible hairdressers who were willing to share, you know, and that's what's really given Bumble its legacy, you know, and fantastic legacy.
Fantastic. To see and experience, how do I articulate this? But the stretch of reach that you guys had, especially in New York in the fashion industry, I mean, it is just astounding what you guys did. It's really cool. And you're getting a lot of shout outs.
Who's on? Oh, Pony's on. Cool.
We got Pony, so many.
Guys. That was the thing is, what attracted me to Bumble wasn't Michael. It was what he was doing. You know, he was hiring, you know, and paying freelance hairdressers on a contract. When I was a freelance hairdresser, as many of us were, you got paid, your agent would sell your tear sheets.
Mm-hmm.
So if I did a town vlog, my agent's on the phone, you're like, whoever, you know, Jean-Louis David or Bumble, you know, I've got 10 pages in the town vlog. Do you want to buy it? So they would buy the pages. What Michael did was he would hire, and I think the first one was either Max Pennell or Orlando Pita.
Okay.
And you would see Bumble credits in the magazines all the time. So I knew that name. And it was very clever the way he did that to, you know, Bumble wasn't a gigantic salon, you know, a gigantic organization. But he's very clever in the way that he picked these people who, you know, were at the top of the game. You know, Orlando Pita back in the late 80s, early 90s, killing it. You know, Max Pennell with Madonna, you know, and it's just that whole experience and the ability to learn marketing at that level was quite incredible, you know.
Yeah.
So what I had to do was bring Bumble up as far as an education company.
Mm-hmm.
And it was tough because, you know, we were a bunch of gangsters, you know what I mean? Like cutting hair, razors, whatever, partying, you know, going out, like fuck off, you know, didn't give a shit about anybody.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when we had to bring education to people, you know, that was the kind of like, all right, okay, we've got to build structure here, you know, and that was tough, you know. But what I went back to was the way I was taught, you know, on structured sectioning, understanding graduation, weight movement, you know, balance, and it just all came together, you know, and we got to, you know, hit a few people who got to come through our schools and through our education, you know, if they didn't end up in a bar somewhere.
Yeah. So one of the things that has always perplexed me, or I've always wondered about, is it possible for a company, I mean, let's take Bumble, for example. You guys just had your finger on the pulse. It was beautiful. This art was just, you know, pouring out. After a while, it becomes a business. After a while, it really becomes a business. Money gets to a point. You open more salons. Is it possible to have a company grow and then keep what you had in the beginning, or does every company have an expiration date? Does that make sense?
When we opened the second salon, it was the death of the brand.
Okay.
You know,
yeah.
We had 56th Street. When we opened downtown, we failed because we didn't know how to run two separate organizations. Mm-hmm. We had a fantastic school, but the salon was failing because we didn't make sure and say to every hairdresser that you have to go downtown for a certain amount of days. We made it optional, you know, and what happened was you had these young kids sort of like trying to sort of get it on downtown, and it didn't work, you know. The management, everything, you know. Sometimes, you know, when you split a family up, this is the end, you know, and that's what I felt happened to us. You know, we had a beautiful building, you know, 6 floors, a museum, you know, it was a theatre. It was immaculate, but it was the start of the end.
Yeah,
you know. And when we sold to Estee Lauder, that was the start of, you know, really there was nothing left. You know, I got to spend a couple of years going uptown to Lauder, and I had a great education on business because I would sit in these meetings with these incredible people, you know, who are so smart, you know, like the guy from Mac, and I mean, all these people from Lauder. But what I saw was there was a gap, you know, in how quickly they could respond to things, and that's why You know, when I started R+Co, I wanted something that could be very, you know, active, you know, and react quite quickly, you know, within 2 months instead of 2 years. You know, so when a brand gets caught up in like big business, big business is about slowing things down, taking your time, you know, and maybe not being first out the post, but you know, I just felt it was too slow for me. You know, I couldn't be the hairdresser I wanted, or the business person I wanted to be.
So with R+Co, how did that journey begin?
I had a place here in West Hollywood called White House, and it was, you know, I had a model agency. We were doing PR. I was still under contract to Bumble, and I had a salon, which is basically 2 rooms. One room was for consultations. That's all I did in there. It was like all white, 1 brush, and you know, the next room was dark. It was all pinpoint lighting, so it had mirrors that the client couldn't really see what was going on. They could see bits of it.
Okay.
You know, so it was that whole transition from light to dark. You know, but I would always give them the option. You know, and we interviewed all our clients to be clients.
Right.
Like, why are you here? Why do you want to spend another $200 for a haircut? And it was kind of fascinating to me because I wanted to see where the salon industry was, you know, in Los Angeles. And it was more of a sort of research place.
Yeah.
But I got approached by Ted Finger, who I met when he was 16 years old. I think he's like 50 now, maybe. Yeah. And he had an idea. You know, he worked at Bumble with us, you know, as a kid, and was the best salesman ever. And he called me out in Miami. I was like, no, I'm not going to Miami. I'm not, you know. He said, come to Miami. So I went down to Miami, and he proposed a collective with Garen and Tom. And I hated Garen, you know, fucking detested the guy, because we'd be working on projects, and then he would have the cover of Vogue with the same project. Like, oh no, shit. He's amazing, like, amazing. Pissed me off all the time. But in total respect, you know, Tom Priano, you know, him and Bruce Weber made GQ, you know, like that. Tom changed men's hairdressing, and I don't think people really understand how much of an influence he was to GQ and you know, Bruce Weber, you know, and he does amazing women's hair. He's not a barber; he's like a trained hairdresser, you know. And when I met the 2 of them, you know, it wasn't the first time, but we sort of sat down and had this conversation about, you know, this industry is falling apart. You know, 6 years ago, you know, as the whole sort of like, you know, Instagram thing, Insta famous thing, it was happening. We saw that we were losing the classics, you know, giving people education on like real shit, you know, from the 20s, 40s, 60s, 80s, research, understanding our heroes, you know, and that's what signed the deal, was that we agreed that between the 3 of us, we would go back to, you know, recreating the classics for people, and bringing an education that, you know, wasn't fast and furious. It was like slow, methodic, you know, very, very instructional, and, you know, and bring back some sort of like discipline to hairdressing. And that's how R+Co really came out. And, you know, the products were secondary. You know, we made products based on, well, I used to love gel, but now it sucks because it's flaky. So let's make a gel that's not flaky. You know, and you know, to me it was like a continuation of Bumble, like next level, you know.
Yeah, I think that I watched Toni and Guy and TG. You know, Toni and Guy was this thing that I held so close, like so deeply. I loved them, and I felt that that was my family. And there was a time when, you know, bedhead happened and all this stuff, and it was just a product and another product and another product and another product and another collection, and it seemed redundant after a while, and it lost what I felt it had, which prior to that, people probably thought it was already lost by the time I started with Toni and Guy, who knows. But watching that type of thing happen where, and it's understandable, it easily becomes about the money and selling product. To keep the integrity of the brand, sometimes I wonder if that's possible long term. And I see that you've had your hands in these beautiful companies that have done so well, and you know, you seem to still have it in your heart to do it right. And it makes me wonder, you know, if I go down the line and Lost Hairdressers, I have a business partner in Dallas now, and we're working on putting something together. It worries me that it will get homogenized. And you know, someone like you has the experience and the perspective to know about that.
What I've managed to do is, and I always tell people, get out while you're on top.
Mm-hmm.
Like, don't wait until you suck to change.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, you know, to me, I'm like, you know, they drop me into an area, the paratrooper in, and like, I'll kill everybody around me, you know, and I'll build something and then I'll move on. And that's my life. It's always been that, you know, and I'm great at building stuff, and I can continue to make stuff, but at some point you got to delegate your stuff out and move on, you know, and celebrate what you've made instead of sitting waiting to, you know, the ship to go down, you know. And it's not that the ship's gone down, it's that there's something else happening, you know, and another opportunity. And, you know, R+Co to me, you know, it feels like I've been doing it for 5 weeks instead of 5 years or 6 years now. And you know, because the people that I surround myself with are so energetic and so into it, you know, that they keep you going. And I think that's the key, is that, you know, it's the same with, if you opened a salon 10 years ago, you know, the 10-year-old hairdressers in the salon are like kind of miserable now, you know. 10 years ago, everybody's like, yeah, we got salon, blah, blah, let's go. But now, like, we don't really care about them. You know, you're promoting younger hairdressers, they're feeling left out. You can't let your team sort of collapse behind you. You have to move forward together and make sure that those people who were enthusiastic are still enthusiastic.
Yeah.
To train the kids, to get the next level, to get the next salon. You know, I worked on a project in Chicago, a friend of mine, and I interviewed all his staff. You know, he'd been open for 15 years, and people were kind of miserable. And they were the first sort of like, gung-ho, let's fucking get it, you know. So what we did is we re-interviewed all the staff to say, where are you now? Who are you? How do you fit in here? And it was a great experiment. It took me 6 months. You know, I'd go every couple of weeks to Chicago and interview them. And I found out the nail person was actually a PR for Chanel at one point. So, fuck, now she's a PR.
Right.
But we get lost in our own shit sometimes, and our own, you know, oh, what's next? You know, and if you're the owner, sometimes you're just like, you don't really see what's around you. Sure. You know, so what we did, we started mentorships with the elders with the kids, because they hated the kids. So the kids are like, fuck you, fuck you, I'm doing this, I'm a man, where's my phone, you know. So we created a mentorship program that they felt, I'm important, you know, and you'll always respect what we did to get you here, you know. And some people, you know, we offered them to open a salon with them because they were going to leave. And we said, look, we'll be an investor. We'll look after all the books, all that shit that you're not good at, because you just want to get your own salon. So why not let us help you get there?
Sure.
And it worked, you know, and it's kind of terrific. And that's the things I love doing, You know, it's like challenging, you know, and make sure you don't leave anybody behind, you know, just because they're older, you know, and they're kind of miserable. They're miserable because you don't care, you know.
Yep.
You could be 90 years old and do hair and be amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the ability for someone you look up to in this industry to say 2 words to you, and that lets you sail on that for the next year. I mean, it's so important, and I think it gets lost a lot. But people who have employees or they have assistants or whatever can so easily elevate them to be a better employee or a better assistant rather than, as you said earlier in the conversation, just bringing them down because they can.
Yeah, yeah. You know, if we were in the army, you wouldn't mind their age or their bones are sore. You're still fighting together,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And we're warriors. We have to fight together. You can't leave anybody behind, you know. And unless they want to just move aside and go, but it shouldn't be because they felt misled.
Yep.
And lost. You've lost the faith in them that built your industry, built your brand, you know. And that's why I celebrate hair heroes, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Alexandre, the Carita twins, I mean, like Vidal, Christian, I mean, like all these people I have so much respect for, you know. And if they were alive, I know I'd be able to shake their hands and be happy to do that, because they've given me a career and a life that I wouldn't have had without them.
I'm going to ask you a question that I wish I had had the ability to ask 10 plus years ago. And that is, if somebody, you know, in a small town in the middle of the United States or wherever, if they want a piece of you, if they want a piece of your ethos and what we've been talking about, and they don't have a connection with R+Co, how do they get to you?
Well, they'd probably get through to either DM me, and I answer all my DMs, and it's just, if you want something, go for it. There's nothing worse than not asking that question, you know, about, I want to get to that. So there's a process, you know, and, you know, the first thing I say is, like, be ready, prepare yourself, you know, work on your French twists, your braiding, you know, get all your classics done, and you'll get there, you know. And there's a route that sort of that just collides, you know, with people who are creative. But if you don't ask, you don't get.
Mm-hmm.
So with social media, it's very easy to get a hold of people. You know, I'm talking to a kid in Austria right now, you know, and I've been sort of mentoring him for a few months. And, you know, he sends me pictures of what I'm trying to do. So it's an online sort of like connection. And it's fantastic, because if I don't share what I know and can't share the people who can help you about the things I don't know, then I'm useless. That's
Right.
not my life.
Yeah.
You know, and my life is about sharing, about education, about creating the next better version of me or Vidal or whoever, you know, Laurent. I want this industry to excel, you know, and not just depleted into, like, you know, being the sort of like robotic hairdressers that sometimes I fear, you know, is going on.
Mm-hmm. That's beautiful. I mean, that is for any of you watching, that's a heck of an invitation right there. So
Yeah, hit it.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic.
I mean, I've got a girl, Georgia Rue. She was Pretty Collective in San Francisco. She came to my door and shut the door, and I'm sitting there with my son. I was like, yeah? And she's like, yeah, I need to be here. I was like, okay, come in. And now she works with me.
Amazing.
So that's what you do, you know? And I've watched her fail, succeed, And it's amazing because we're like friends, but in a way, like, I know she's going to be the next fucking R+Co superstar.
Awesome.
Because she wants it, you know. And when you want something, you got to get it.
Yep.
It's there.
That's beautiful. Well, Howard, this is awesome. I'm really stoked that we got to talk. I mean, it's been, if I'm feeling inspired, and I am, I can't imagine what the audience is feeling. And
well, hello to everybody.
We're neighbors. Yeah.
Yeah, we should, once we can leave our houses, we should go for a pint.
I would love it. I would love it. That'd be great. We will definitely stay in touch. And then I know at our salon in Dallas, we are an R+Co carrier, so I definitely hope to catch you there and here. So we'll see what happens.
Thank you.
Awesome.
It's a pleasure talking to you.
You too. Thank you so much. Thanks for your time.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, Howard.
All right. Thanks, mate.
Thank you.